Think about Kaiser, think about Rasputin, think about Kennedy. Throughout the history, the men in power always had their antagonists who sometimes menaced their power through extreme ways, assassinations. During the first decades of the 17th century in France, the king was Louis XIII, but the power wasn't his. For the first years of his reign, it was his mother's, Marie de Medicis. Then, it was his royalist, the Cardinal Richelieu, in his later years. Richelieu, who ultimately died out of an illness, faced numerous threats of assassinations. Opposing aristocrats, the king's mother, the king's brother, the queen, and even the king conducted assassination attempts. Richelieu's survival seemed ridiculous. Gaston d'Orléans, the king's brother, was the legal successor of the throne till 1638, perhaps being highly ambitious. In 1626, with the support of the queen, he and the Duke of Sale plotted against Richelieu's life. However, for Richelieu, there was an extensive, powerful secret police. The attempt was found before its practice, and the Duke of Sale was sentenced to death. However, his friend did not give up the Duke. They were conducting the amnesty movement all around the country, but they failed to grant amnesty till the day of execution. All they needed was time. They were sure that they could achieve the amnesty if they had enough time. So, all they should do was to delay the execution. The execution day came, and they succeeded to kidnap the executioner. The execution was anticipated to be delayed, and the Duke seemed to survive. But the kidnap aggravated everything. Richelieu was angered, and one of the most horrendous deaths recorded in the history was waiting for the Duke. Execution of the era needed professional skills and fine tools. Even experts often had to try several times to completely behead the convict. As revenge for the kidnap, Richelieu made another death row convict decapitate the Duke in return for amnesty. Soon, the new amateur executioner came with his sword on his hand. In the middle of the crowd, the executioner hit the Duke's neck with the sword. The Duke screamed in pain, but he was alive, and his head did not fall off. The second attempt also failed. Then, the executioner changed his instrument from a hopeless sword to a much more hopeless one. An axe, but not one used for beheading, but one used for chopping firewood. Its extremely dull blade was forewarning the Duke's desperate fate. The attempts to cut off his head continued. The dual blade of the axe repeatedly struck the neck, but one more try just meant one more failure. After 20 attempts, the Duke still had a clear consciousness and shouted in extreme pain, "Oh Jesus! Oh Maria!" But it was not the end. His neck was seriously damaged, but it was still there. The amateur executioner wielded the axe again and again. When the 33rd attempt was made, eventually the Duke lost his consciousness, but still was alive. His neck was dangling, but still there. Before the next hit, executioner turned the Duke's body. His eyes faced the sky, yet out of focus. There was the last strike, and the head finally fell down to the ground. Then the executioner raised the bloody, fallen head and showed it to the crowd, whose eyes were filled with sympathy and fear. Ultimately, the unfortunate Duke was dead after his neck hacked for 34 times. Despite the horrible death of the Duke, the assassination attempt toward Richelieu didn't stop till his death in 1642. However, there was no more attempt to kidnap executioners.